Hey, you wild women, we are coming in with a little quick throwback episode about the reality of how to be seen as an expert. And why I wanted to bring this up again is because there's a lot of people that have this vision of growing their reach, their impact. And if we have this purpose, if God is working through this, there is a sheer sense of responsibility to follow through on our plans, even if we don't know where we're going. And part of that is checking off the box of how to be seen as an expert. A lot of us are afraid of the spotlight. A lot of us are afraid of we don't know how to reach out to the media. We also are afraid to be speaking on stages. We're afraid to be networking at important events. And I actually have a really great episode coming out with Danielle Wiebe about this because she's a networking expert. And really, what I wanted to do in bringing this back to the surface is in teaching you some quick steps and quick tips on how to be recognized in your space, the steps to do it, the importance of this, but also how to get over the fear, how to avoid burnout in the process, because more so than ever before, journalists and brands are looking at people who have a growing personal brand. And so I want to bring this episode again. It's still fresh. It's still quasi-new. The content is still super relevant on the reality of how to be seen as an expert. So tune in because here we go. Hey, you wild women. Today I want to talk to you all about how to be seen as an expert. It is one of the questions I get from friends, from family, for people who are on sales calls. And let me tell you, if you aren't doing or considering investing into your personal brand, then it will become incrementally harder to be featured in the media. It will be harder for you to get asked to speak on stages and get accepted as a guest on top podcasts. Now, here's why. Now, I'll probably come back to this example too later on, but we have a journalist who is a coach to us on retainer at We Wild Women. Because we provide PR services to female entrepreneurs by way of retainer or a VIP day, we always want to make sure that we are avant-garde, which means we want to make sure that we are at the cusp of what's happening and trending in the industry, and also getting, perspective from the other side of the table. What does it feel like to be a journalist today when it comes to pitches, and what's actually working? So her name is Jill. And she's an incredible person. And so she explained to me, I had a question for her the other day about if you had to choose between two experts that have the same credentials and the same great opinions, and it came down to one person that has a little bit more engaged in a larger social following versus the other, she will choose a person that has a little bit larger of a social following. And here's why, is because publications and podcasts need eyeballs, and they're going to assume that a person with a bigger following will share the show, share the episode, share the article, and create even more exposure for that particular piece. It makes sense, right? That's what the industry is about, eyeballs, shares. And so while the default is great content, they also need to know that, hey, does this person have an engaged online presence? Is there a chance they're going to share this content with their community? If so, then they check off all the boxes. Now, we talk about overexposure too as a personal brand. Right now, there's some people out there that it's like they're constantly in my feed, good and bad. Good in the sense that I know them as the go-to people in their industry, but bad, it's like, I don't need to hear another version of the story. Good thing we can mute or unfollow people for a time being. But in this digital age, there's also a thin line between that visibility and that exposure. Some might argue that constant online presence can actually dilute the value of an expert's contributions, while others believe that staying top of mind is crucial for building and maintaining a personal brand. Now, if you're going to ask me, I would say that staying top of mind is crucial. It's easier for the audience to mute you or to unfollow you for a moment, even though I have interest in coming back, than it is for you to try to find that exposure again. So first, I want to start off with explaining what people must do to be seen as an expert. So we're going to start with setting the foundation for becoming an expert. What does that mean? So I have this process called the visibility ladder. The visibility ladder has a few rungs. So picture a ladder that you have to climb up. In order to get to the top, there's a couple things that actually need to take place. When you're working with me as a client, a Wee Wild Woman, we start off on the ground level, so not even on the ladder yet. So we position the ladder against the wall, kind of feeling to make sure that it's even, it's balanced. The bottom rung is called the business goals. I ask them, my clients, does a PR strategy complement the business goals? Is this actually going to help them move the needle? It's going to help them get projects or get announcements or launches across the finish line. The next thing we go to is their website. Is the messaging clear and the positioning clear? It's really important that everything is succinct and makes sense. The same words are being used. The messaging is very clear. The next thing we'll look at are the clear offers. Is there a clear call to action, and do people know what problem you solve? I started working with a client last year around this time, so February, and she was launching a book in June. Now, I said, what is the thing that you're really selling? Like, the book is one thing, but we know we don't make money off the book. You make money off the exposure the book gives you and the thing you're selling on the other side of it. And she said she didn't have anything. So we put together an offer that coincided with the context of the book and allowed her to generate revenue. So what is the clear offer? Because you can put out all this content, but if there's no destination that makes sense for these people, then they're going to be lost and they won't come back. The next thing is social presence, which is a lot what we're going to talk about today. So are you actively sharing content that positions you as a credible, authoritative voice? And we tend to look at this as an opportunity to procrastinate because it scares us to be putting ourselves out there and to actively sharing content because we know that there's trolls and there's haters, or maybe the people won't see it and no one will share. And then we just feel like we're not enough. This happens to even the greatest people. So it's all about building the muscle, building the momentum, and making this a part of your daily activities. So the next thing we look at is media assets. Do you have the necessary assets to even start reaching out to the media or even start pitching yourself as a speaker or nominating for awards? The assets are simple as a media kit with updated bios, a long, a short, and a medium bio, updated headshots. Maybe it's product features. Maybe it's the inside of your program, or even just a one-page downloadable nugget about what it is that you offer. Do you have the necessary assets in place to promote yourself more on social and to start pitching the media? So we tend to view this as the media kit, and it's always evolving. So the top of the rung is the outreach. Are you actually ready for prime time? So the question is, do you have capacity in your day? Just because you've hired an expert like myself to represent you, to pitch you to the media, to pitch you to be on podcasts, it still requires additional time on your end. I can't tell you how many times I have worked with a client. They're like, I don't get this. You're supposed to be doing this work. Why is this taking up so much time? It doesn't really take up that much time. Initially, it does. We need feedback on pitches and whatnot. But there's going to be your time that's involved in interviews, to be on podcasts, to look at pitches and feedback, to maybe write an article, a contributed article, answer a journalist query. So are you actually ready for prime time? Meaning, is there capacity in your calendar to do the work? For me, for example, so part of the cadence in our company is that my VA, who is trained up on PR, pitches me to 5 new podcasts a week. And we've been getting some pretty decent shows and some pretty big wins as of late. However, the problem is that going into the next month for us is a lot of travel. So there's a lot of times where it just doesn't make sense for me to record episodes. So I actually told her to take the foot off the gas for a couple weeks leading into the next month so that I can get capacity back in my calendar. But we've created the system and we have the momentum, so it's not hard for us to get going again. So in the meantime, there's other stuff that she's focusing on that is super relevant to this. We do this all the time with our clients as well. If there's holidays or if they're traveling, we take the foot off the gas. And then we just make sure that we're doing stuff on the back end, which could be updating media kits, finding new sources, creating new content, new pitch angles. So there's always something on the go. So that's the visibility ladder. So here are some simple steps you must do to begin with as the foundation to being positioned as an expert. Well, nowadays, we have these fancy things called phones that allow us to connect to the entire world. And this is by way of social media like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And it is becoming our own, we are essentially becoming our own media company. So when I work with clients, part of the things that we do is we focus on the social content and even some content marketing things, because people will go to the link that you send them to review you. I can't tell you how many times I've been pitched with a link to probably 5 different social accounts to view this expert, of which 3 or 4 of them haven't been updated for a year or 2. Don't share a YouTube link to a journalist or a podcast host if you haven't actually published a YouTube episode in the last couple months. You have to find a platform that you can consistently create content. Because as we know, the experts agree that one must consistently create high quality content that provides value to their audience. So this content should showcase your expertise and address the needs and interests of your target audience. Well, Renee, how do you do this? Well, let me tell you the answer. It's quite simple. You can start out by answering some of these questions. One of them is, what are the top 5 questions you get asked on a sales call? So imagine this, you have a prospect, you jump on a sales call. What are the 5 questions that you get asked? It could be about your program. It could be about length or cost or your product or return policy. You might get very often these questions, and if it's not relevant to social, then don't share it. But there's still going to be something on there that is so important for your audience to hear. And then once you find those golden nuggets, you can actually share the same type of content, just reformatted in like 5 or 6 different ways. Now, the next question to ask is, what is the number one problem that you solve for? What is it that you really do? If you had one thing to say that you solved for, and who, what is it? And then answer the why behind it. How can you share content that people learn to respect and that positions you as an expert in your field? So how can you create content where people can actually respect you? Is it a balance between business and parenting or business and fitness? People don't just want business all the time. They actually want to see a little back end peek into your private life because people love that stuff. So the next question to ask is, what do you do that's different than anyone else? How are you different? Publicists are a dime a dozen. SEO and Facebook ad people, they're a dime a dozen. There's a crap ton of them out there, and a lot of them are really good. How are you different than them? Is it a process? Is it who you work with? Is it how you work? Make sure you really emphasize this. And also a reminder that people love humor. They love to laugh. They love great tips. They love aha moments. So how can you sprinkle that into your content? How can you get people to know you and thoroughly enjoy hanging out with you online in a way, while also giving them the value in the content that'll help them maybe change something in their life, understand a pattern, become like lose weight, gain more money, whatever it is. Sprinkle in the humor, the tips, the aha moments. So nextly, is that even a word? Next up is engaging with your community. So we know that analytics wise, like Instagram, for example, they want you to engage with the community. They want you to go in and they want you to comment and like and share and answer polls and ask questions, all while keeping you in the platform. So that's how you build the community. And I shared this the other day. It's a question for you is, do you remember the last time you gave somebody a compliment and their entire demeanor changed? It's as simple as giving somebody a compliment or asking an intriguing question. My coach, Eleanor, she calls it, when it comes to sales, the 5 POCs, the 5 points of contact. How are you reaching out to 5 different people on a daily basis? And social is a very easy way to go. People have email exhaustion. So this is a very easy, simple, and complementary way to get in front of your target audience and to position you as an expert. So for me, like, I love answering all my DMs, and I do. Whether even it's as simple as a heart or a thumbs up or a voice note or something, every single person that directs messages me that isn't a sleazy salesperson will get a response, because I understand that there is a human being on the other side of that screen that either wants to be seen or heard or needs tips or advice, and it is my duty to be of service to those people. So next up is leveraging multiple platforms. Now, there's a caveat to this. If you're just a one-person shop or a small company that does not have contractors or people in place, I always say choose one platform and do it really well. Now, if you do have the team, you have to leverage multiple platforms that make the most sense to you, where it comes easy to you. Some people can just riff on Instagram lives and stories and reels like it's nobody's business. Other people are really good at doing like the no face reels and videos or sharing their recipes. Whatever naturally comes easy to you, go with that and then own that. Once you create the capacity and the process around it, then you can leverage other platforms. Like we once went Instagram, like podcasts, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, all this stuff. And I got to the point where it was so overwhelming for me because I had to approve all this content. And I just said, let's turn off the energy to YouTube and TikTok for a while we ramp up Instagram. So now we're kind of repurposing stuff and putting it back up on YouTube again, because YouTube is a very important platform. And then so while you're doing this, right, the seed important thought is that you're trying to position yourself as the expert so that people naturally come to you. You get called on for your perspective, your opinion, to be a guest on a show, to be interviewed, you name it. The last thing is to constantly be learning and adapting. So this means staying updated with latest trends, technologies, and knowledge in your field. It's demonstrating that you have a commitment to growth and learning that helps to solidify your status and as an expert. For me, I go to webinars all the time on PR and journalism and the state of the industry. I'll download guides and books. I buy all the new books on my Kindle that are in the industry. I listen to all the podcasts, competitors or not, all the time to get insight, to glean insight as to what's going on in the industry. And is there anything that I need to be doing that's different for my clients? So that is setting the foundation for becoming be as seen as an expert in your industry. And I'm not saying you have to have full production. I'm not saying this is stuff you have to be doing 18 times a day. You do have to be sharing online. Let me tell you, once you start getting niche with your content, once you start focusing more on a specific topic and sharing more often, you're going to lose followers. That's okay. You're just trimming the fat. These are people that are just not interested in that content anymore. But eventually, there'll be this shift where you'll start attracting more people that want that content. So don't give up. And I'm talking months. I'm not talking days. For most people, the transition period takes 3, 4, 6 months. Just promise me you'll stay the course. Now, I'm not going to go into actual pitching yourself as the expert, because right now we're just establishing how to be seen as the expert. Super niche, super focused content around a core specific problem that you solve for your audience. If you do want more tips on how to actually pitch yourself, a couple of things. You can go to the website, my website, wewildwomen.com/freebies, and there's a bunch of content there. You can also tune into episode 207 on how to pitch yourself as a podcast guest, as well as episode 205 on how to build authority. Those will be linked in the show notes. Now, those 2 episodes will talk more clearly about how to pitch yourself, but the lead magnets, the freebies on my website will actually give you pitch templates and access to a media list that you can start using today. Now, I want to leave on a little note about what to avoid or what most people try to avoid in all of this process. They try to avoid overselling. So they don't want to feel too salesy, right? Oh, I don't want to talk about my programs too much because I don't want people to think I'm selling. Well, you are. You are trying to either sell yourself as an expert or sell your programs or products or services. Whatever it is, at the end of the day, that is the point. Don't be shy. Don't be sleazy, but also don't be shy. And it's okay to repeat yourself. something like only 20% of your active followers see your stories. And it could probably even be less than that now. I don't even know the statistics anymore. But all I know is that when you go and you view your stories, it'll tell you how many people have seen it. And that number keeps getting lower as your followers get higher. So just know that it's important for you to repeat the same content for those that follow you to be reminded, and for those new people that started following to know that this is who you are and this is what you do. Now, the other thing most people avoid or try to avoid is neglecting the niche focus. They think if I just cast a wide net of content, I'll just attract a lot of people. Well, I just had a call with one of my podcast coaches, and he said that he used to have a podcast that was very specific to WordPress developers and all of the issues to what it means to be a WordPress developer. And then he thought, well, if I cast a wider net, I'll probably attract more subscribers and followers. So what he did was he changed the show to be a more broad focus of actually talking to business owners, generic business owners. Guess what happened? It flopped, completely flopped. The people that were there, the OGs to begin with, didn't like the content anymore. And then the new followers were confused. So the more niche you can stay is the most important thing you can do to be seen as an expert. Don't cast a wide net. Just as your business coach will say, do one thing really well. Don't shiny object syndrome where you're going to do this and you're going to launch a book and then you're going to do a planner and blah, 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 all these things. A good business coach will tell you to focus on one thing and do it really well, to set a goal and reach a certain target with that one thing before you consider doing anything else. Well, the same is with your content. If you want to be seen as the go-to PR expert in your industry, that is the content you need to be talking about. I'm talking about myself here. The other thing people try to avoid is neglecting negative feedback. We don't like criticism. I hate those trolls and bots and all these things. Mean people come out. Let me tell you, if you have a cat image and you have a bunch of numbers in your handle, you ain't a person. And you're just hurting. You're on the other side of that screen, leaving terrible comments to discourage people and make people feel bad about themselves. Listen, they show up and I see them even on the accounts of the nicest people I know. The nicest people get faced with criticism and negative feedback and haters. And guess what? It's just the way the world works. You can choose to let it bug you, or you can choose to ignore them. And it's much easier to ignore them. Just let them be. Let them be. So the other thing people avoid doing is to be consistent. This could be inconsistency in their messaging, in their values, in their content frequency. All this stuff harms your personal brand. So it's really important for you to create the schedule, create the messaging that is built around trust and reliability, especially with your audience. For our show, we use Google Drive, so Google Docs or Google Sheets for the schedule for our show, of which we're probably going to be moving over to another platform soon. But essentially, I can go as far back as episode 1 all the way to episode that is relevant today and look at the content that we've created. It allows us to also look into the future. So we actually have all of our interviews are now scheduled out for February. So March, April, May, June, for the next 5 months. So if you want to be a guest on my podcast, unless there's a really good reason why we should be moving that interview sooner, we record today, it won't be published till the end of July at the time of this recording. So 6 months out. Now, I do have some guests that come on. They're like, hey, I'm launching a book on this date. Can my episode go live then? For sure. But the scheduling is the most important thing for you, for your content. It gives you ease because, sometimes you get those days where you're like, I'm on fire, all this great content, all these great ideas. And then you get those days where you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I say? Who do I say it to? Is it a reel? Is it a carousel post? Is it a post? Just flushing this out and creating a sustainable way to position yourself as an expert in the industry that allows you that comfort and ease into being invited to be a guest on podcasts, to being interviewed by the media, radio, TV, you name it, or the go-to person for your opinion. It's really important that you're consistent, you're niche focused, and it's I don't want to say easy, but there's an ease to creating that content. So when you go through all this work about what to do, what to avoid, or what most people tend to avoid. And understanding that visibility ladder, it's from there that you can actually start pitching. So that process can take a couple months. Some people hire us to help them with this process. Other people say, I'm almost there. Give me another couple weeks. But you really need to make it easy to pitch yourself so that all these things are done, all your bases are covered. People know what you're about. People know what it is you're trying to achieve, the expertise and opinions that you can provide, and the perspective that you can share. So on repeat, guys, on repeat. Until next time, ladies, peace out.